Ethan had never felt fear like this before. The patrols were closing in, their blue lights sweeping over the desert like hungry eyes. He had Arya hidden in the underground storage chamber beneath the shelter. The little girl was trembling, hugging herself tightly, and whispered the one word she had been repeating since the moment he found her. "Daddy." Ethan's chest tightened. Every fiber of his being screamed to protect her. He grabbed his rifle, checking the safety one last time. He knew he could not let the soldiers reach her, not for anything. His plan was simple but dangerous. Distract them, lead them away, and give Arya time to escape if necessary. He opened the shelter door and stepped into the storm-washed desert. Sand clung to his clothes, and the chill of the wind cut through him, but he did not falter. The patrol spotted him immediately. 2 alien soldiers, taller than humans, clad in shimmering blue armor, advanced carefully, weapons raised. "You are harboring the fugitive child," one of them said, its voice harsh and metallic through the translator. "Hand her over. You will be punished if you resist." Ethan did not respond. He knew words would not save them. He needed action. He raised the flare gun he had been carrying and fired it directly into the sand between them. The red light flared, blinding the soldiers briefly, giving him just enough time to dash to the ridge nearby. Plasma fire streaked past him, cutting the night with dangerous precision. He ducked behind rocks, heart pounding, sweat mixing with sand on his forehead. Arya's soft voice echoed faintly from below. "Daddy." He clenched his teeth. That single word, repeated over and over, had transformed him. He was no longer just a man hiding from the world. He was her protector, her family. He had to survive for her. Hours passed in a blur of running, dodging, and hiding. The patrols pursued him relentlessly, but the storm made the terrain unpredictable. Sand dunes shifted, hiding tracks. Ethan used every trick he knew from his time as a combat medic, always staying one step ahead, always thinking of Arya waiting for him below. He stumbled, his body battered, bleeding from a deep gash on his arm, but he kept moving. The thought of Arya's tiny hands clutching his jacket, eyes wide with hope, kept him going when every muscle screamed to stop. Finally, as the storm cleared and the first rays of dawn painted the sky in pale orange, he saw the outline of the shelter. He was exhausted, nearly collapsing, but adrenaline pushed him forward. He reached the entrance expecting to find Arya, but the chamber was empty. Panic hit him like a wave. "Arya," he shouted, his voice hoarse. From the shadows, a tiny figure ran toward him, bare feet leaving small prints in the sand. It was Arya. She had crawled out while the patrols were distracted, following the faint signals of the shelter. Ethan scooped her up, holding her close, feeling her trembling body relax against his chest. "You're safe now," he whispered, kissing the top of her head. She looked up at him, violet eyes glistening with tears, and whispered the one word again. "Daddy." Ethan smiled weakly, tears escaping despite his exhaustion. For the first time in years, he felt whole. He held her tightly as distant hums grew louder, human rescue shuttles responding to the signals he had repaired weeks ago. His work had not been in vain. The shuttle landed a short distance away, its ramps lowering with a hiss. Human soldiers, faces marked with surprise and relief, stepped out. They had been tracking his signals for days but had expected an empty outpost. Instead, they found a man holding a small alien child, both covered in sand and blood. One soldier approached, speaking in a calm voice. "Sir, are you all right?" Ethan nodded, trying to catch his breath. "She's fine. Get her on board." Arya clung to him even tighter as they carried her up the ramp. She was safe, but her eyes never left Ethan's. She whispered softly through her broken translator. "Daddy forever?" Ethan smiled, brushing sand from her hair. "Forever," he promised. The shuttle lifted off, leaving the desert behind. For the first time, Ethan allowed himself to rest, holding Arya as she fell asleep in his arms. He studied her tiny face, violet skin glowing faintly in the shuttle's lights, and realized something profound. This small, fragile being had changed him completely. She had brought him back to life when he had thought it impossible. Days passed aboard the shuttle. The humans negotiated with the alien authorities to ensure Arya's safe return, but Ethan remained by her side. He taught her small new words every day, watching her repeat them with pride. He watched her sleep, listened to her soft breathing, and felt a bond growing stronger than any language or species barrier could break. When the time came for Arya to return to her people, Ethan felt a pain he had not anticipated. She had grown from a fragile, trembling child into someone brave, curious, and full of hope, all because he had chosen to care. And yet she was part of a world he could not enter. The farewell was quiet but deeply emotional. Arya hugged him tightly, her tiny arms around his neck, whispering the word that had started it all. Daddy. Ethan knelt to meet her eyes. I'll never forget you, he said. You gave me hope when I thought all was lost. I will carry you in my heart forever. Through the translator, she smiled and said softly, One day. One word, Daddy. The shuttle lifted, carrying her into the sky. Ethan stood on the landing platform, watching as she disappeared into the horizon. The wind whispered around him, carrying the scent of sand and the faint glow of the rising sun. He repeated the words softly, his heart full of love, pride, and hope. Daddy. In the weeks that followed, news came that peace talks between humans and Arya's people were progressing. Her story and Ethan's bravery inspired both sides. He had not only protected a child, but had reminded the galaxy that courage, compassion, and love could bridge even the widest gaps. Ethan returned to his shelter on Elira 7, but it was no longer a place of solitude. The memories of Arya's laughter, her small hands, and her glowing eyes filled every corner. He repaired the comms tower once more, not for messages that might never come, but to signal hope to anyone who might be lost, alone or afraid. Sometimes, when the desert winds howled, he could swear he heard a tiny voice calling his name, repeating the word that had changed his life. Daddy. And every time he heard it, even if only in his memory, he smiled. He had been broken, silent, and lost, but one little alien girl had taught him to speak again. She had taught him to hope. Ethan knew without a doubt that he would never be the same. And he did not want to be. For the first time in his life, he had found a bond stronger than fear, stronger than solitude, stronger than the desert itself. It was simple. It was small. It was one word, and it had changed everything. The rain fell in sheets, drenching the ruined city, washing away the dust and grime that had settled over decades of war. Amid the wreckage, a small figure huddled under the remnants of a collapsed building. Her clothes were torn, her hair matted, and her eyes reflected a fear that had hardened into hopelessness. She had been discarded, thrown aside like something useless, something that no one cared for. The war had left her world in ruins, and those who should have protected her had abandoned her to the chaos. She had lived on the streets for weeks, scavenging scraps of food and finding shelter wherever she could. People had stared at her as she passed, some with pity, most with disgust, and many simply ignored her. She had become invisible, a shadow drifting through a city that had forgotten what kindness felt like. But that night, something changed. From the shadows, a figure emerged, tall, strong, and moving with a purpose that she had not seen in anyone else. He wore simple clothes, not armor or weapons, but there was a presence about him that demanded attention. His eyes scanned the ruins until they fell on her, and for the first time in weeks she felt seen. He knelt down without hesitation, extending a hand. "Are you okay?" he asked gently, his voice calm but firm. She recoiled at first. Trust was a luxury she had not known in months, and fear had taught her that every approach had a cost. But there was something different in him, something that spoke to a part of her that had almost disappeared, the part that remembered warmth and care. I'm fine," she whispered, though her voice trembled. "You're not," he said simply, reaching closer to help her up. "Come with me. You don't have to stay here alone." There was no hint of judgment in his eyes, no impatience or irritation at her frailty. He treated her not as a burden, not as something broken, but as someone important. That simple recognition, the acknowledgement of her existence, shook her more than any danger ever had. She hesitated, glancing back at the shadows where she had spent countless nights hiding, but something inside her urged her forward. Slowly she placed her hand in his. The warmth of it spread through her like a spark, and for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to hope. He led her through the ruins with careful steps, avoiding dangerous debris and unstable structures. Along the way, he offered her food from his pack, water from a small canteen, and words that were gentle but reassuring. She had not known that someone could treat her this way, not as a burden, not as a tool, not as something disposable, but as a human being worthy of care. Hours passed, and eventually, they reached a small shelter at the edge of the city. It was not luxurious, but it was safe. There were blankets, a fire crackling in the hearth, and a quiet that was almost sacred compared to the chaos outside. "Rest here," he said. "You're safe for now." She sank to the floor, her body trembling from exhaustion and relief. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to cry, not from pain or fear, but from the weight of loneliness finally lifting. As she slept, he kept watch, his eyes scanning the ruins beyond the walls. He had seen many things in his life: loss, destruction, betrayal, but he had also seen the resilience of beings who had been written off as weak or unimportant. And in that resilience, he found a reason to fight, a reason to protect. Days turned into weeks. The girl, whose name was Lyra, began to trust him. She learned that his name was Ethan. He had been traveling through the ruins, helping those he could find, and when he had seen her, he could not ignore her. To him, no one was truly disposable. Every life mattered. Every being had value. Lyra found herself opening up to him in ways she had never done with anyone else. She told him about her past, about how she had been left behind when the city fell, about the people who had turned their backs on her. And Ethan listened, not with pity, not with judgment, but with understanding and patience. He taught her small things: how to identify edible plants, how to find safe water, how to move silently through dangerous areas. But he also taught her something far more important: that she was worthy of being treated with care, that her life had meaning, and that she was not defined by what others had done to her. One evening, as the sun set behind the shattered skyline, Lyra looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. Why do you care about me? I'm just me. I'm nothing special." Ethan smiled, shaking his head. "You're wrong. You're everything. You've survived when so many would have given up. You've held on when the world tried to throw you away. That makes you precious." Those words settled deep within her, embedding themselves where fear and doubt had lived for so long. She realized that for the first time, someone saw her as a person, as someone valuable, not as a burden or a tool to be used. And that realization changed something inside her. It made her want to live, not just survive. But the world outside their small shelter was still dangerous. Other survivors roamed with less kindness, scavengers and raiders who would take without thought. And though Ethan protected her, he could not always be there. Lyra had to learn to trust her own strength, to believe in her own ability to survive. One day, as they moved through the ruins looking for supplies, a group of raiders cornered them. They sneered at Lyra, mocking her small frame and ragged clothes. "What's this? Another weakling left behind? Looks like dinner." Ethan stepped in front of her without hesitation, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. "Leave her alone," he said, his voice calm but unyielding. The raiders laughed, thinking him easy prey, but they underestimated him. With precise movements and clear purpose, he disarmed them, moving with a strength that came not from hatred, but from the determination to protect. Lyra watched in awe, not just at his skill, but at the conviction that radiated from him. He was not a warrior for conquest or glory. He fought because he valued life, her life, and the lives of those who could not defend themselves. When the raiders fled, Lyra's hands shook. Ethan looked at her, a small smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "See, you're safe, and you'll always be safe when I'm here." Lyra's eyes filled with tears, not of fear this time, but of something deeper: gratitude, trust, and a dawning realization that she had found someone who truly valued her, someone who saw her not as disposable but as precious. That night, as they settled near a fire, Lyra spoke softly, almost to herself. "I never thought anyone would care about me again. I thought I was nothing." Ethan placed a gentle hand on hers. "You're never nothing, and you never will be, not while I can help it." For the first time in a long time, Lyra allowed herself to dream, not of escape, not of hiding, but of a future where she mattered. A future where someone saw her for who she truly was. And in that future, Ethan was not just a protector, but a beacon of hope, showing her that even in a world that had discarded her, she could be cherished. And so, amidst the ruins of a broken city, two souls found each other, one scarred by neglect and abandonment, the other determined to see the value in every life. Together they began to rebuild not just a safe place to survive, but a world where kindness and courage could shine even in the darkest times.